According to the 2021 McKinsey report, Black Americans are more likely to start a business than any other ethnic group, but only 1% of venture capital funding goes to Black founders due to none other than systemic challenges. After the senseless killing of George Floyd by police officers in Minneapolis, Aurora James, the founder of the shoes and accessory brand Brother Vellies, headed to Instagram to call out major retailers and ask them to give 15% of their shelf space to Black-owned businesses, which equates to the percentage of the US Black population. Creating real systemic change is a continuous journey that requires us to always keep taking steps forward, no matter how big or how small. This is the work in progress. Aurora James, welcome to the work in progress.
Hi, Chris. Thanks so much for having me.
Let's go back to your origin story. It's June 2020. You put something on social media. What's the first step of taking a social media post and turning it into an actual movement?
Oh, gosh. Well, you know what? I think what was so specific with the idea I put into the world with the 15% pledge was that it felt like an ask that everyone could get behind. You know, in the wake of George Floyd's murder, there was so much resentment and sadness and confusion and grief. And it's really hard sometimes to find action items around feelings, especially for major corporations, right? They're just sort of like, how can we make a donation and kind of get past this moment? And so I think, you know, when I posted on social media and said, here's one thing you can do for us, it resonated with a lot of people and kind of took off from there.
And also speed, right? This is the thing where I heard a rumor that this kind of happened over a weekend. Is that correct?
Oh my gosh. So yeah, I had the initial idea on a Saturday afternoon. I sat down and thought about it, posted it to Instagram that day, tagged a bunch of businesses. It was super uncomfortable, but you know, I wanted to make sure that they saw it. I stayed up overnight on Sunday to launch a petition by Monday at noon. By Tuesday, we had thousands and thousands of signatures. By Wednesday, we gained a fiscal sponsor to become a nonprofit. And by day 10, Sephora became the first major corporation to commit to the 15% pledge. So it was definitely a whirlwind, but we're so happy that it kicked off in that way.
That's brilliant. 28 businesses later, $10 billion roughly it equates to. How does that feel? Tell us about the successes so far.
We're doing it, Chris. You know, it's happening. And it's an incredible nonprofit organization of over 15 women, most of whom are women of color. And we're working diligently every single day with our pledge takers to make sure that we're making big strides towards economic justice. Since we started, we've onboarded over 400 Black-owned businesses onto the shelves of retailers across this country. And I think it's been such a fantastic proof of concept to see that not only was the idea resonant, that it was also going to be really wonderful business. And so what a lot of people don't realize is that these retailers actually sign contracts with the pledge. So Nordstrom, for example, has signed a 10-year contract with us to do this work. And I think that it's going to be 10 years of really great work. And I'm so excited to learn more about entrepreneurs that look like me, that have been making incredible products for a really long time, that just never had the opportunity to be known. You know, there's that old saying that talent is distributed equally, but opportunity and access is not, right? And I think that the pledge really speaks to that.
So what's next? Like what's next on the journey for 15% pledge?
We're really looking at, okay, who are the top 5 in this country that haven't yet taken the pledge that would have the most economic impact across this country? Companies like Target, Walmart, CVS, Kroger, Amazon, right? What would it look like for them to take the pledge, and how would it so positively impact this country? There's so many people that are afraid, right? They're afraid to take a chance. They're afraid to make a commitment with the pledge and have outside accountability. They're afraid to make a mistake. And what I always say to them, Chris, is that stumbling is evidence of momentum, right? And as we go forward in life and we try new things and we push ourselves, we're going to make mistakes. It's not going to be perfect. But the important thing is that we're putting one foot ahead of the other and we're trying. And the real failure in this country comes when people don't even try and they stand still.
Executive Director of 15% Pledge, Latoya Williams-Belfort, has devoted her career to the human service sector and brings 18 years worth of experience along with her. What are some of like the rebuttals and the hurdles you had to go through in order to get people to sign, and also maybe they decided to not sign up?
Right. It's the work is definitely a lot of emotional capital, right? Because it's really kind of unpacking how we all got here, and then really reimagining a new way forward. So that takes a real understanding of how we all are participatory in this process and how we all have to be intentional about reimagining and taking next steps. So a lot of emotional capital. The pledge, again, we were at a moment in time where a lot of companies were looking for real solutions, again, from a social good perspective. So they would come to the pledge. And I think once they found out that, again, our proposition is rooted in social good and corporate responsibility, but really it's rooted in business and economics. And I think that was just a plus plus.
Do you think this would have worked as efficiently in a 2019 or a 2017 or 2004?
I honestly say no. And I say no because as an organization, we've had rapid fire growth and support from 2020 to 2022. But in all honesty, our work is becoming more difficult now because the weight of the systemic justice reality is becoming very heavy for non-people of color. And there's something that's called compassion fatigue. And I think folks are 2 years into this continued pandemic, the continuing of the racial justice conversation. It's a lot. It's a lot of emotional capital. And the organization is now working harder to continue our momentum than we've had to as it relates to partnerships and inbound interest and things like that.
Can you talk a little bit more about the economics of what 15% Pledge has been able to accomplish?
Yeah, well, for us, it's really about that number, right? When we think about closing the racial wealth gap, right now, Black business represents 0.4% of U.S. retail revenues, right? 0.4, because sometimes I say that and folks think I'm saying 4%. So 0.4. 0.4. But if we keep doing what we're doing with all parties, collaborative, by 2030, we could be at 14.6%, right? 14.6. And that equates to $1.4 trillion, right, from Black entrepreneurs that will be funneled into the economy. So 10 billion, right, was a great way to start. But we still have a long way to go. But what we know is that conceptually, from a proof of concept perspective, this model, right, as we continue to codify it, but we know this model works.
So, when you take all this stuff into consideration, Latoya, what do you look at as sort of the final emotional impact and the retail impact for both consumers and businesses?
I say this all the time for retail. It feels like such a common sense proposition, but my mom would always say common sense is not common. First and foremost, that products made by Black entrepreneurs are not just for Black people, right? So let's give a resounding kind of understanding of that. And then the next step of that is that, diverse shelves make for a better consumer experience. When I go into the store, I want to have access to, be able to cross compare a variety of products from a variety of entrepreneurs that have a variety of lived experience and a variety of cultural understanding. And I want to choose the best product for me. And I think that just makes a much better inclusive, and that's the gem of diversity and inclusion, right? Just a much better experience all around. And I think from a revenues perspective, again, a no-brainer, right? The more that your shelves can speak to your customers, the more that you drive the bottom line.
Ulta Beauty has allocated $4 million in marketing funds specifically to highlight Black-owned lines, and Chief Merchandising Officer Monica Arnaudo tells us more. So one day, you get this email that talks about a 15% pledge, and what is your first thought?
I would say when we got the call or when we started the conversation, for us, it was, well, we believe in the pledge. We believe what Aurora, the vision that she's setting forth, we believe in that. And so for us, it was really important that when you sign a pledge, you're making a commitment. And so as the largest beauty retailer, for us, we wanted to ensure that we could fulfill this commitment, that we could work closely with Aurora and her team to build out an ecosystem to really support the brand.
Well, you know what? One thing I love about the 15% pledge is that it's huge. It's a huge ask. And some may say not enough, but at the same time, to shift as the largest retailer in this space and say 15% of our shelf space is going to be dedicated to this group, what does it take to like actually shift the ship in that sense?
Yeah. It is. And, it is a huge ask. And that's why we take a commitment like this. I personally, our team takes it really, really seriously, because you're right, Chris, it is a big shift. And so it takes perseverance. It takes commitment. It takes an ongoing focus. And it takes us as a merchandising team, really getting out there and making sure that we've got a purview to all of the amazing Black founders that are out there. To make that happen, though, this building out this ecosystem of support is crucial, because it's not okay to just be like, okay, we're going to just bring in a bunch of brands. Well, no, we've got to make sure, we've got to nurture, we've got to make sure that we're supporting the brand so that they can continue to grow and they can scale and they can thrive in our environment.
15% pledge is a great example of setting a lofty goal, but a goal that is honorable and just and fair, and may feel like a big shift for a lot of companies. And to see a brand like Ulta come along and say, hey, we're in this, we're going to do this no matter what it takes. And they know that it is good for the bottom line of the culture, bottom line of the business, and just being a part of a mission and being a pioneer in that space is great to see and great to learn from. When I think about the retailers who have not yet taken the pledge or are hesitant to take the pledge, I guess my advice is to not let fear get in the way. I know there's a fear of getting it wrong, the fear of not having enough resources, the fear of honoring other brands you might have on your shelves, but the overall impact on both the communities that you're serving, the customers you're serving, and the employees and the teams that you're serving is tremendous. And that's something you don't want to miss out on.